The Ape Canyon to Smith Creek Loop, a ride in 4 acts. Before we begin our story, we must first arrive where the story takes place, and we do so by driving east on the Lewis River Road until it becomes Forest Service Road 90. From there, turn left at the Ape Caves sign, and when you see the turnoff for the Ape Caves, you just keep right on driving. Don't go to the Ape Caves, because they're caves, and caves are stupid, because caves are scary and dark, and I hate caves, and it's going to collapse on me, and I'll die of starvation buried underground in a stupid cave, and no one will be around to hear my screams. It'll just be me, alone, shivering, not sure when I've died. Anyhow, keep driving to the Ape Canyon parking area. It's tiny. Go park at the Lava Canyon trailhead if the Ape Canyon trailhead is full. Act 1 of this ride begins at the bottom of the Ape Canyon Trail. The first half mile of this trail is needles on hardpack and this very nicely benched side cut through fantastic forest with some pretty great trees that are only going to get better the higher you climb. The surface of Ape Canyon is very smooth, but it's also kind of a relentless climb. There are minimal obstructions on the surface of this trail, which is shared with a large number of hikers, even on a weekday. The Ape Canyon and Plains of Abraham sections of this trail are very popular with hikers, so do keep that in mind. If you decide to do this as an out and back, you will not be able to shred the descent during the daytime. Ape Canyon Trail parallels the Muddy River Canyon for the first approximately 4.5 miles as it ascends 1,500 feet. There are 7 significant switchbacks on the way up the trail in case you were interested in counting switchbacks for some reason. Maybe it brings you comfort. The section with the switchbacks in it contains what is arguably the best forest on this ride, with a bunch of big old trees standing sentinel on this ridgeline. After the switchbacks, there's a little downhill respite to help dry off some of your sweat while you lose 150 feet over a half mile. Then there's a bit more climb until you finally arrive at the top of the Ape Canyon Trail at this awesome viewpoint. This view is the beginning of Act 2. I could talk about all the awesome exposures and viewpoints on this trail along the way to this viewpoint, but I've already reviewed this trail and talked about the possibilities, so go watch that video if you want to know more. For now, pay close attention to the top of Ape Canyon, because you'll be at the bottom of this canyon you're currently at the top of in a couple of hours, give or take, depending on your pace. So, right now we are standing at what is literally the top of Ape Canyon. So Ape Canyon is that really narrow gorge down there. It looks like a crack that goes down the hill. So right here's the top. That's the top. That's the drainage that leads into it. And then it goes over here. And it goes all the way down that valley. And it's hard to see in the GoPro, but there's, you can see the Smith Creek drainage over there. It's kind of that, it's that light colored smudge down there. That's a creek bed. So we're gonna be down there. So we're gonna go up and around the Windy Ridge viewpoint, and then we'll end up back down there at the Smith Creek drainage. And then we'll keep going and go around and climb back up out of that canyon to get back to our car. This is a great place to refuel as well. Eat and drink an energy bar or whatever, because you're gonna need the energy for the rest of this ride. This traverse over the top of Ape Canyon drainage is probably the most dangerous section of this whole ride. There used to be a sign here directing you to dismount from your bike. Sign or no sign, you do need to dismount from the bike here, for your own safety. Don't be a dope. Walk your bike through this traverse. After the traverse, it's all rocks, pumice, and sand for the next 10 miles or so. This is where you'll be really happy if you brought a mid-fat hardtail. I know I was. The views of the mountain here are quite stunning. This is where the otherworldly landscape of post-eruption Mount St. Helens really takes over. I wasn't alive when the volcano erupted, and I can't even imagine what this place looked like before 1980. I mean, it must have had trees. It obviously had lots of trees because you'd never top out above 4,800 feet on this whole ride, which is still about 1,200 feet below the natural timberline for this part of the world. There are places in this section where you'll have to get off the bike as you traverse over the plains. Like, you'll be able to ride down into these drainages, but you won't be able to pedal back out. Like, the surface is just so loose, you're going to have issues. Trust me. Don't feel badly about this. You're still an amazing mountain biker, but it wouldn't be mountain biking if you never had to get off the bike. Then, after these traverses, the trail opens up onto this commanding view of Mount Adams. This is where all the overnight backpackers usually stop to camp, although the creek here was strangely dry for this time of year, so it's not the usual reliable water source backpackers have come to depend on. This is another great spot to just stop and take in the view, although there is still so much more to come. Continuing on from this place, it's a pretty straight shot to the junction with the Lowett Trail. So this is a Lowett Junction, well, what we refer to as the Lowett Junction, even though there is another Lowett Junction, but no. But it's crazy, man. The scenery here is just nuts. I've been here at night before. Technically, you're allowed to ride that trail. That's what I hear. Don't ride that trail. It's terrible. It's pure torture. This is also the usual turning around point for most people doing the out and back. You should absolutely not turn around here ever again. There is so much more to see beyond this point. We're talking about the loop, of course, but so you're not going to turn around. But even if you're just doing it out and back, you need to not turn around here. You've got to keep going. Keep pedaling, and eventually the trail leads to all these canyons where you can really appreciate the vegetation recovery that's been happening since the eruption. This is also where the scenery really erupts into jaw-dropping magnificence. You'll be kicking yourself, as I was, for not having come out here sooner.
So at this rate, we're never going to make it down because we keep having to stop for all these views.
Eventually, after winding in and out of the canyons and through one epic and jaw-dropping view after another, the trail finally arrives here, at the lunch log. This is where you should have lunch and turn around. There are now views of the entire blast zone, and you can see all the way over to the Johnston Ridge Observatory if you look closely enough. Look out onto those plains, and behold the throngs of humans crawling around in there. Also, look at the trail in front of you. That ribbon on a knife's edge is where you're going. Seriously, this place is nuts. This is one of those areas where it's just so beautiful you want to take it all in, but you don't dare look down because you'll die if you fall off to either side. It's just pure drama on a mountain bike. It's also a lot of fun. Please do keep in mind that you're very close to Windy Ridge, and that place got its name for a very good reason. It can get windy enough here to blow you clean off your bike if you're not careful. After the knife edge insanity, the trail arrives at these cable ladder thingies on a really steep slope, and I know exactly what you're going to do when you see this. You're going to do what I did and be all like, I got this, and then realize that the ground underneath your tires has the consistency of cat litter, and even with the wheels completely locked up, there's no way to control your speed or direction. Which is why those cabled together logs were placed on the ground in the first place to help hikers avoid sliding down on their butts. Once you get to the bottom of these ladders, whether you are aware of it or not, you've pretty much decided you're doing the whole loop because there's no turning back now. You don't want to have to climb back up those, do you? After the ladder debacle, you'll find yourself back on the knife's edges again before they join up with this Forest Service road. The road cut climbs a bit and then descends quite a bit to the Windy Ridge Observatory. Look around at the people getting out of their cars here. Even though you just rode your bike 11 miles over 2,500 feet of climbing to get here, you'll find that you're feeling a lot fresher than the people getting out of their cars look because they just drove an interminable 50 miles of curvy road to get to the same place. Seriously, I hope never to do that horrible drive ever again. Biking is the right way to get to Windy Ridge. Oh, and by the way, you see Johnston Ridge over there? It takes 3.5 hours to drive there from here. Now, right up this road past the Smith Creek viewpoint. Seriously, do not stop at the Smith Creek viewpoint. That's not where the trail starts. Continue to the Smith Creek trailhead. That's where the trail starts. This is the beginning of Act 3. Enjoy the view of Spirit Lake from the trailhead. Enjoy just standing around at the trailhead. This is the last, truly epic view you're going to get for the entire rest of the ride. Smith Creek Trail starts out on a very narrow side cut with a precipitous drop-off to certain death. This descent is the 3,000-foot descent that you came for, and it is not worth the work you went through to get here. There just is no nice way to put this. This is the most cross-country of descents in all the land. If you were somehow under the impression that this was anything other than a long and brutal cross-country ride, please allow your experience on this downhill to dispel any such notion in your head. The switchbacks are tight, the vegetation is overgrown, and the tread is just loose pumice. You know what cat litter is made out of? Cat litter is made out of pumice. So just imagine a 3,000-foot pile of cat litter that was allowed to find its angle of repose, and that pretty much sums up what riding down this section of trail feels like. You can just go ahead and lock up that rear wheel and slide on down the hill. Steering input from your front wheel translates to the surface as more of a suggestion. Don't try to shred this trail. You'll just regret it. Also, everything is kind of a car wash all the way down with pumice, lots and lots of pumice, until, of course, you get about 3/4 of the way down the descent, and then things get kind of interesting. There's a very unique surprise in store for you.
I feel a portmanteau coming on. When pumice and loam meet, it's plome.
Yes, plome. It's basically the sponginess of loam, but built on a compacted pumice substrate. This is a very rare thing. 40 years worth of accumulated loam over pyroclastic flow. This is quite a special experience, this plome. The trail in this section is set up like a winding off-camber pump track. It's so awesome. This is seriously the most fun section to ride on this entire loop. Taken by itself and with an easier approach, this would be a well-known and beloved section of trail, but taken as it is, with the arduous hell you have to endure to get here, it's not worth the trouble unless you're already planning to ride the loop. But I wouldn't take my friends here to ride this section of trail, but if you're here, enjoy it. This plome. Best plome around. After coming down off the main slope, the trail kind of trucks along on the bottom of Smith Creek Canyon, which is flat and filled with more of this kind of newish, deciduous mixed forest and more loam. It still feels mostly trends downhill through this flattish, plomy section. This is the most cross-country of all cross-country sections of this trail. Like everything else in this canyon, it is getting wildly overgrown. This place is legitimately out of control. It's again another little shop of horrors trail. And they come through it. Somebody comes through every year to try to cut this back, but man, it grows fast. There is this pretty cool waterfall coming into the side of the canyon that the trail will open up onto. At least there is that. That's actually about the most scenic thing you'll see in this canyon. Soon after the waterfall, you'll arrive at the most dramatic and dangerous knife edge on the entire trail. Be careful here. Be very careful. From here, the canyon keeps getting deeper and darker, and the trail more and more treacherous. There will be more of this pretty forest, but then you start getting to these sections where the little peninsula that the trail exists on has kind of been getting eroded away by the two creeks on either side. If you've ever been above the timberline on any of the high Cascade volcanoes, you have an idea what this is like. The last major obstacle in the canyon is this crossing. Do not despair of this. It isn't so bad. Now, it does change every year. So sometimes it's marked with trail tape, but often whatever trail tape got tied to kind of gets washed away. You know, trail builders have tried cairns, they've tried sawing steps into logs, they've tried all kinds of things. Nothing works. Eventually, everything just gets washed away. What you need to do is just find a place, any place, where you can cross over to the west side of the canyon. After crossing the creek, the trail will be located on that bench that's above you. Poke around until you find somewhere you can climb up to the top of that bench. Good luck. Feel free to get creative, but do be careful. As you continue, you will encounter more trail inside of relatively young deciduous tree tunnel. The trail will eventually bottom out at 1,500 feet elevation, so you're entering a very different climate zone here as it becomes markedly more humid and more like a wetland bramble. And then finally, after all these miles, you'll come to the bottom of Ape Canyon. It just looks like a creek now, but this is what dumps out at the bottom of that narrow-looking canyon you saw from the first big viewpoint. Just look how far you've come. Pat yourself on the back. The most demoralizing part of the ride is in front of you. So, middle, and stuff, more pretty young forest and some exotic bridges and riding up and down and around drainages and some pointless ups and downs, but the forest does start to get bigger and older down here as there are now giant conifers that survive the pyroclastic flow, and eventually you'll make it here to the beginning of Act 4. Act 4 sucks. Act 4 is an interminable climb up 1,100 feet over 3.3 miles of old, degrading Forest Service road. After all the riding you've just done, this is the biggest letdown for the end of a loop that ever existed. It's not that the road is a difficult climb. It's not that it's technical. It's just awful. There's nothing I can say to sell you on this climb. It's because it comes at the end. Nobody wants to end a ride on an 1,100-foot climb, but here you are. The next time I do this loop, I'm going to try parking down at the bottom of Lava Canyon, crossing that suspension bridge at the bottom, and do this climb at the beginning. Anyway, you'll know you're near the end of this road of sadness when it starts coasting downhill. Once you get spit out onto the pavement, the Ape Canyon parking area will be to your right, and Lava Canyon parking area will be to your left. It'll take you about 4 or 5 years to forget enough of this trauma to get yourself fooled into doing this ride again, but for now, hire a good therapist. Now, get out there and go ride your bike.